and make sure I have my chat panel available. So if you have questions, I did go ahead and mute everyone just because I was getting some weird background noise. You can use the chat function in Zoom to ask questions, or you can unmute yourself to ask a question. So I muted everyone. You're not stuck that way though. So if it's easier, feel free to unmute and ask a question as I'm going through things. Other than that, let's see here. Okay, so one of the things, what I'd like to start with actually is just kind of a brief description of what this training is going to be about. I realized about halfway through the first one that not everyone, some people had different reasons for being in the training and not everyone necessarily needed to be there. So I am going to talk a little bit right at the beginning about the specific download files that we've created for Indiana. Those are the course files that are going to be used for either the Media Pro LMS or any LMS that you're using, but the rest of this training is going to be specifically the Media Pro LMS. So if you're using your own LMS, after I talk about the files, the rest of it's not really going to apply to you. So that's just kind of a heads up. We didn't really think to clarify that at the beginning of the training yesterday. If anyone is unable to see my screen, you can let me know in the chat. Like I said, you can also unmute yourself and ask questions. Everyone was pretty quiet yesterday, so feel free to ask questions. If I'm going too quickly through something, you can interrupt. The first piece that I wanted to talk about, and let me pull up my file that has these. So Jason made available to everyone links to download the course files. So what that means is each of those links lets you download a zip file for the course. And there are 3 versions for each one. So bear with me one second while I open up the file that I have those in. You only need the version that goes with your LMS. So there was a little bit of confusion with some of the people who did the training yesterday about which of those files they needed. So what should look pretty similar to what you have, these are the files that that you have links to download. So there are 3 versions of each course. There's the phishing course, safe computing course, and then the social media risks and benefits. If you're using the Media Pro LMS, you're going to use the one that's labeled SCORM 1.2. So, and that's labeled on the download link as well, I believe. You only need the SCORM 1.2 version for each course. Hopefully that kind of clears it up. If you're using another LMS and you're not sure which file you need, you should be able to check with your LMS administrator and they'll let you know which of these you want. So these are kind of the 3 available formats, and we just went ahead and created each course in all 3 formats so we wouldn't have to sort of backtrack and recreate them if anyone needed. The AICC is probably the least common one, but if that's the form you need, you will download that. For our LMS, and we are going to go through this process, you're going to be uploading the zip file. So the other thing to keep in mind is when you click on the link and download the file, you don't need to unzip that file or extract the file's contents. You actually are going to upload it in that zipped format. So I'm going to move that off to the side here. And I am in a sandbox environment, basically. This should look very similar to what you have. Emails went out to all of the admins, so whoever was on the list for requesting the LMS site, that's who has an admin login. You can definitely add additional people. That's also the person who's going to get notifications. So if you send out emails to people that they have been assigned to a course, for example, if they hit reply, those emails have been set to go to whoever was the person who requested the site, if that makes sense. So the person whose name was on the spreadsheet, that email address is the reply to. That can be changed if it needs to, and Jason set up a spreadsheet to deal with support issues specifically for Indiana DOE, just so that we're not creating a bunch of different support tickets, so it kind of all goes through one spot. So if you need a different email address to be in there, maybe the email address to your IT department or something like that, you can request that on that Google document and we can make that change. So just by default, it just means that, again, if someone replies to a system-generated email, that's going to go to you. The other thing to note there is the system-generated emails come from system@litmos.com. That piece can't be changed. So if you're going to be assigning training and you're afraid that people are going to see the emails coming from Litmos, not know what they are, and think they're phishing and delete them, then you may need to send out some sort of communication to let them know that this is coming. So that's just one of those things we see sometimes. Where I'm going to start here, so again, definitely let me know if you guys have any questions as I go through things. The first thing I'm going to look at is Teams. And the reason I'm going to look at that first is you need to decide before you import your users, or it's best to decide before you import your users, if you're going to divide them up into groups. So any of those groups in Litmos are called teams. And I should probably back up and say that when you log into the LMS, you're going to see this admin dashboard. This is what admins see. So your end users are not going to see all of this. Their view will be different, and we'll go back and take a look at that before we're done. But as an admin, you have some access into different parts of the setup. So across the top, I'm going to click on Teams. If you want to have your users set up into different teams, you want to set those teams up first. So it's not the end of the world if you import all of your users and you don't sort them into teams and you want to do it later. You can do another bulk import and add them to teams that way. But generally, it's easiest to kind of do that right from the beginning. So it seems like a weird order to do things, but it makes the most sense to look at teams first. When you create a team, all you have to do over on the right-hand side, you can click Add a New Team, and then we're going to name it. I think I did one yesterday, so we're going to call this one Indiana Dewey Test 2. And then you can add a description if you want. And over on the right, I'm going to click Add Team. And the really important piece when you're setting up teams is once you've added that team, you can go into Settings right here, and you're going to see this team code for importing people in bulk, which is kind of a mouthful. It used to just be called team code, but people didn't always realize what it was for. So it's specifically for when you import people in bulk, so from a big spreadsheet, you need to have this code in order to route people to their teams. So I am going to open up my sort of sample spreadsheet for importing users and show you where that goes. So the import template, it's a really basic template. I don't usually send it out because really all it is first name, last name, and email address. Those are the items you have to have. There are more fields that you can map, and when we go look at the bulk import, I'll show you guys that. But really, those are the 3 fields that you have to have. And then if you're doing teams, you have to add that team code. So you can't just name a column based on the name of the team. It has to be that very specific code. So I'm going to take this one here, and it has to be the whole thing. So the number and then the name of the team, and then that goes on this spreadsheet. So things that are worth noting there is you can map somebody into up to 5 teams. You can either do that when you first import them. So if for some reason you have 5 different ways you have your people organized, you can have 5 columns for that in the spreadsheet. Or you can, if you import a user who's already in the system, as long as the username matches up, it will just add the information you're importing to the existing user. So in other words, if you add all your people with no teams, and then later on down the line you decide you want to have teams, you can just add the team code to that same spreadsheet and re-import it. And it's not going to make a duplicate of this person, it's just going to add them to that additional team. So in general, when you import user lists, it's not going to remove people who are not on your list, and it's not going to create duplicates. It's just going to create a new one if that person doesn't exist. So if it doesn't find a match for the username, and then if it does find a match for the username, it's just going to update them with the information that you've imported. And in general, the bulk import is the best way to add users. We're going to do that in just a second. Does anyone have any questions about teams or team codes specifically? You guys can let me know in the chat. One thing I am going to show you. So once you have set up teams, the other things that you can do, I'm going to go back to teams here. So up across the top, these are kind of the main navigation. This takes me to teams. And then if I'm going to search up my team using this field up in the corner here. So the other thing you can do is you can add teams under another team. So the only thing to keep in mind there is you can basically set it up with sub-teams. I'm not sure that anyone in this group is going to have a team set up that's that complicated, but if you're on the Teams tab, you can look at this chart view and see that it's possible to set up teams and then sub-teams underneath that. So if you have your specific locations or something and then you have sub-teams under it, that's one way that you can set it up in the system. Just depends on how detailed you want it to be. So once you have set up your teams, we're going to go up to people, and this is how you are going to import your users. So at this point with Litmos, we don't have any kind of directory sync. The administration of the users does have to be done by an admin. You can use the bulk import to do that. When you're just getting started, you can add people one by one. So let's say you need to add somebody just for the purposes of testing something. On the People tab here, you can go over on the right and click Add a New Person. And then all you need, again, is first name, last name, and username. I recommend also putting in emails. Otherwise, if you have the system generate any emails to them, then those obviously won't go out. But you can add somebody manually this way, or you can do the bulk import. So on this People tab, I'm going to go over here on the right, and the bulk import is kind of hidden under Options over here. So you want to go to People, and then click on Options, and choose Import People in Bulk. And then this is where that spreadsheet comes in. So I usually save mine as a CSV. It looks like, I believe you can do it with a regular Excel document as well. I do recommend, though, that you do a save as and just save it as a CSV. It's a really good way to see if you've got any special characters or commas or weird things in your document that may cause problems on the import. If you've ever done any kind of CSV import, it's pretty standard, the types of things that can cause issues. So those things can cause problems on this import. So I do usually have mine is saved as a CSV. So I'm going to click Choose File. Oh, and actually, yeah, I'm going to leave it open just because I may not need to pull it up again. In general, I recommend closing the Excel file as well. I'm going to click Choose File and pull that specific file, and then click Open. And then I just need to let it know, does the first row of my file contain column titles? So I have column titles here. I don't want this to be selected as one of my values. So I'm going to say yes, the first row contains column titles. I'm going to leave the language as English. This means the LMS has the ability to assign different languages to different users. It's not something we use that often. It just has to do with the format, mostly of the emails that go out. So I'm going to pick my time zone here and go up to, and this, by the way, the time zone, you can set this per user. There isn't really anything in the system that requires that. I think the only thing that might be impacted would be reminder emails. So if you have people in different time zones, generally I just pick the one that most people are in. There's not really a need to go back in and correct that on users. So once you've made your selections on the left, over on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Next. And this one is a little interesting. So you'll see it says processing over here. And then when it actually finishes processing, then that button turns into map fields. So that's a common spot people get stuck. They're expecting something to pop up. But this button turns into map fields, which I'm going to click on to map the fields from my spreadsheet. So from here, I need to tell it which column is first name, which is last name. It's already found those, mostly because that's the actual column title I used. And then username, we recommend using email. You can use something else. You just have to make sure you're consistent. Email address is already a unique value, so we tend to use that for that. And then I'm going to choose the email again. So the nice thing is that I only have one column for email in my spreadsheet. I can map that to username and to email. I don't recommend trying to set a password for everyone. You don't need to. The first time they log in, the system will ask them to set up their password. So I would leave this alone. I've seen it cause some problems when people try to log in for the first time. As I was talking about earlier, there are all of these other fields in here. Most of them we're not going to use. You can use some of them. It's just worth keeping in mind. So for example, if you use title as one of your columns, you can have title added to all of your users in the LMS if that's something that's on your spreadsheet. But it's not going to do anything to your reports or make much of a difference in the LMS. So a lot of that is just kind of optional based on how much information you want to have about your users in the LMS. And then this down here, this is where I can choose my team code for importing people in bulk. So that's where I'm going to pick that team code. So again, you have to have that code to import people into the correct team. Even if you go into a specific team and try to import people from there, if there's no code, then it's not going to work. So that's probably the trickiest thing about the import. So, and again, this only applies if you're actually dividing people into teams, and you can do up to 5 at this point. You can use course codes to assign people to courses when you import them. It's usually easier to just go into the course once you've set it up and add the people to the course, which is part of the course setup that I'll be showing you. And we'll talk about learning paths when we get to that point. And then, so at the very bottom, you also want to make sure you're leaving these 2 boxes unchecked. So that's what they are by default. The send login emails, we generally recommend sending people emails when you assign them to courses, not when you add them to the system. If you send them an email now, they'll log in, there's no course for them to see, and it's just kind of confusing for the user when they log in. And then skip first login, this is something related to single sign-on. So you want your users to have what Litmos calls their first login, which is the login where they set up their password. So other than that, let me know if you guys have any questions about the fields that you map when you do bulk import. Again, we just need a first name, last name, username, and email address. Those are kind of the basics. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to click import, and it's going to import that same user. So when we were talking about, let me pull this person up because I've imported him a few times. So you can go back into a user and look at their different settings. If I go to teams, I can see he's in this team. I don't think my file's finished importing, so this is the team I added him to yesterday. If I come back in here a little while, he should be in this additional team as well. And actually, you know, I might have imported the file without saving the changes. So going back to people, trying not to bounce around too much. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that bulk import. One thing to keep in mind when you're adding people is that the default access level is learner. So if you do a bulk import and any of those people need to be admins, you may need to go back into that person on that list and change their access level. When you go in here, you're going to see administrator, team lead or team admin, and then learner. So you're not going to see account owner. That just has to do with how the Media Pro accounts are set up. Team lead and team admin, that goes back to, I don't know if this really applies to any of these accounts, but you do have the ability to set someone up so that they can be the administrator and run reports just for one specific team. So let me know in the chat if anyone thinks they're going to be setting up teams and kind of getting that detailed with the administration, and I can show you guys how to make someone a team lead or team admin. They're pretty much interchangeable unless you've modified those. Okay, so we looked at teams and how to get the team code. We went up to people and looked at how to do the bulk import. The other big piece in the LMS is importing the courses and actually assigning people to those courses. So across the top here, and this seems like a weird order to do it in, but trust me, it makes most sense. So I'm going to go up to courses up here. And then from here, this is where you're going to add your new course. So over on the right, I have this create a new course button. I'm going to give it a title. And then I can give it a description if I want to. I'm going to put something in there just so you can see where that goes. We don't usually use reference code. You have an option to add a specific image to that course. That is something the users are going to see when they see their courses that have been assigned to them. Sometimes it can be nice just, you know, it's just nicer looking when you have those images. There's kind of a default image that goes with the course if you don't add one. So at this point, all we're doing is setting up the basics for the course. The important thing on this page is to keep in mind that this at the bottom is course image upload. It is not where you upload your actual course file. So I've seen a few people get stuck there where they try to click choose file and then grab the actual zip file for the course. That's not what goes here. What you're going to do from here is on the right-hand side, I'm going to hit save. Before I hit save, you may notice there's a note here that letting you know that by default, you're going to be added to the notifications for this course. So I'm going to show you how to fix that, but it does kind of let you know that whoever's doing the upload is going to get notifications when people finish the course, unless you make that change in the settings. I'm going to hit save here. So once I've saved my course, up at the top, I have my course title, I have my description. This is where the course image would go. If I wanted to add one, I can also just click upload course image and add an image from here. Underneath that, I'm going to go back to content actually. So where I am automatically when I've just created a course is in modules. The module is going to be that zip file that you downloaded off of the page that Jason provided. So that's where you're going to take your SCORM file and upload it in here. So that's under content for this course. On the right-hand side, I'm going to click add content. And then I just need to go find that file. So I can either click choose file and go browse to it. I happen to have it open already. So I'm just going to say, we'll do the safe computing one this time. I'm going to grab that file and just drag it over here and drop it there. I do normally change the module title because that is something the users see. So obviously this is a little bit crazy looking. I may just want it to be called, I'm going to call it Indiana Safe Computing. Otherwise it gets lost in all the stuff that's in the sandbox later on. So I'm going to do my module title. I don't usually put descriptions on the individual module because we recommend only having one module per course. It is possible to upload all 3 modules into one course. It's not the best way to do it though. So if you want to have everyone take all 3 courses, then we'll talk about some better ways to do that. At the bottom of this box, there are a couple options here. The first one, change effects up-to-date status, and the course will be placed back on learners to-do list. That just means I'm uploading this course now. If anyone's taken this course already, I want them to have to retake it. So obviously this does not apply when you're first uploading your course. So you usually don't have to worry about that first one. And then the second one is, do you want them to get an email once they've completed the course? Kind of like a congratulations, you're done with the course now. Most people leave that one off. I do have some clients that have their user forward that email to their manager or something like that. So that is an option here. Once I've kind of set things up as I want them, I'm going to click save. And what that's going to do, I get this little loading bar here that goes across pretty quickly, but the file usually takes a little bit longer to process. So especially depending on the size of the file, it may take a little while. It can take a few minutes. If it's a really big course, which none of these really are, it can take maybe 10 to 15 minutes. This processing here will disappear as soon as that process is done. But the nice thing is from here, I can go change all of my, or check all of my settings while this is still processing. So the only thing I can't do at this point, I don't want to assign users or anything yet, but I can go check on my settings. So in this black rectangle here, all of these items along the bottom are for this specific course. So it gets a little confusing to people sometimes that it says people down here and it says people up here. Just remember that the menu at the very top is for the entire site. The menu in the black rectangle is for the specific item that I'm in. So I am in this Indiana DOE test course number 2, and I want to go to settings for that specific course. I'm going to click on settings. So that warning when I first set up my course, this is where you can see that. Under notifications, I am logged in as Media Pro Hosting. So it says Media Pro Hosting is set up under notifications. What does that mean? That means that every time someone completes this course, I'm going to get an email about it. That may not be that big of a deal depending on how many people you have taking the courses. Sometimes people leave this on when they're running tests. But in general, when you're actually releasing this to everyone you want to have take the training, you probably don't want to get an email every time someone completes the course. So all you have to do there on the right-hand side is just click the little X, and it will remove you out of notifications. And you can also come back and do that later. So if you forget and then you start getting those emails, you can go back into the course and take yourself out of that list there. On the left-hand side, these are all the settings. So there's my course title again and description. I could change those from here if I wanted to. Again, we don't really use reference code. Course inactivation date, we don't generally use that. It basically just makes the course inactive after a certain date. Display, what this means is basically you have the ability to make the course available in the library. Courses that are in the library are courses that a user actually has to log into the LMS and then go in the library to find them. So we recommend assigning courses instead of putting them in the library. You can put it in the library if you want to, if you're making them optional, but that's what this does. So they would have to actually log in and know where to go look for the course. Whereas if they're assigned to it, it's pretty obvious right when they log in. There's our course image again. One thing I definitely want to show you guys is due date. And the reason for that is if you're planning on sending any kind of reminders, that's also done through this box. So you have to set a due date first, and then there are some other options that show up in this section. So this must complete by, when I click on that one, I can either choose a specific date or a time span. In general, we recommend time span because that's going to set a specific number of either days or weeks from the date that that course was assigned, meaning that if I decide that they have 4 weeks from the date assigned, if I assign someone right now, they have 4 weeks to do it. If I assign someone in December, they have 4 weeks from that day to complete the course. Whereas if I do a specific date and say December 1st is the due date, if I have a new hire in January and assign them to the course, it's going to automatically, immediately show them as being overdue because the due date has already passed. So we recommend choosing a time span in here. And then again, this is another, I want to update this for people already assigned to the course. I haven't assigned anyone to my course yet, so I'm not going to worry about this checkbox. But then I also get to decide if I want to send out automatic email reminders. So this is where I can decide to start a specific amount of time before the due date. So I'm giving them 4 weeks. Let's say 14 days before the due date. So about 2 weeks in, I want to start sending reminders every week. So every 7 days until this has been completed. And I can also do here, by the way, every week, same thing. But I want to send them a reminder every week until they've completed the course or until I've sent them like 3 reminders. So how many reminders, how often you want them to go out, when you want them to start, that's all up to you. I recommend not going too crazy with the reminders just because, if you sent someone 5 reminders on something and they haven't done it, there's probably another reason they haven't done it. And at that point, you would want to be running your reports and seeing who hasn't completed the course and kind of going from there. But this allows those to be automated, especially if you have a course that you're giving people a long time to complete. If you're giving them a month to do it, there's a good chance they might forget about it. So this just sends them an automated reminder out of the system. And the email they get is basically, you've been assigned to this course. This is the due date. Here's a link to go log in and take the course. Compliance, we don't use that much. It just has to do with courses that are being used multiple years in a row. So at this point, this is our first year using these. We recommend, instead of having their compliance expire, that if you're going to use the same course another year in a row, that you create a new course and basically copy the content over to that course. So it makes the reporting a lot easier. So you won't have to worry about compliance. Course access expiration is pretty similar to making the course inactive. It's just by user. So another thing we don't usually use. We don't need to lock people out of courses after a certain point, but you can do that if you want to say after a month they can't get in the course anymore. Usually that has to do with regulations if you have those applying. We don't really use the discussion forums. One thing that you can use, and actually I think I meant to send this to Jason yesterday and I didn't, but I will make sure that Jason has this to make available to you guys. You can upload a certificate template if you want, and that just means when the users are done with the course, they can print out a certificate. Let me grab my template for that. So we have kind of a template you can start with. It's just a Word document. You can decide to use it as is. You can put your logo in the corner, but it's just a basic certificate. Or you can make your own. You don't have to use the one that that MediaPro uses. Or you can change this, change the colors, put your logo on it, whatever you want to do. It's just a certificate that people can complete. And also usually if you do have like team admin set up, they can go back in and see those as well. So Other than that, let me go ahead and I'm just going to minimize this so I remember to send it to Jason when we're done. But those are all of the settings for the course. So let me know if anyone has any questions. Let me take a quick look here and just see. Pulling up my participants list. Everyone's been super quiet, which hopefully is a good thing. Keep in mind, if you want to ask questions, you can ask them in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. I basically just used the mute because we were having some background noise at the beginning. So for the course, we've uploaded our file. We've done all of our settings. On the right, I'm going to hit save. You may also notice, just something to keep in mind, under settings is where the delete button is. And that's on purpose, right? You don't want the delete button to be somewhere you can accidentally click it. But if you are setting up a course and you just realize, okay, I've messed this up too much, I just want to start over, you do have to go into settings in order to delete the course, but you have the access to do that. So once you've set up all of your settings, the other main thing is assigning people to that course, which you can do a couple of ways. I'm going to go to people under this course. On the right-hand side, I'm going to click Assign to Existing People. And this is where I see all of the people that are in my system. So in general, assigning through clicking on people, this is usually done if you're either assigning a couple of people when you're in your sort of test mode, if you want to test things out before you deploy it to all of your people that need to take the training. Or if you want everybody in the whole system to take the same training, you can use this to do Assign to All Users, and it will just assign it to everyone. If I pull up someone here, I'm going to do a quick search. Oh, yeah, I wonder if, there we go. So once you can search somebody up, when you want to add someone to the course, you want to check the box next to their name. And then at the bottom, this is usually the one where I do leave this email or this checkbox checked to send emails. When you assign someone to a course is the best time to send them an email. And the reason for that is they get the email, they log in, they set up their password when they first log in, and then on their main page is going to be the course that's assigned to them. So this is usually the point we recommend sending out those emails. I'm going to uncheck this just because I don't want that automatic email, and then click Assign. So you can assign people one by one. The other thing you can do is if you did sort people into teams, you can go to Teams and click Assign to Teams on the right-hand side. And we're going to look for our, I probably have a lot that have it in there. Let's see. That's what happens when I'm in the sandbox and there's too much. So I can assign my team this way as well. If you have assigned a team to a course, and then you add additional users and you put them in that team, they're going to automatically be assigned to that course. The system is pretty smart about teams. So if, let's say I'm in two different teams, I'm in the IT department and I'm also in a team for a specific location, for example, if both of those teams are assigned to the same course, the system's not going to make me take that course twice. So it's going to understand that I've already completed that course. Assigning by teams, the only downside to that is that if you try to go into my individual record and remove the assignment for that course, it's going to say, well, you can't do that because this person belongs to a team that's assigned to that course. So it can make that part a little bit tricky, but it's usually a lot simpler to import everyone, organize them into teams, and then do the assigning that way. And again, you can send the email at that point. I'm going to hit cancel on this one. So the main things once you've added your course are going to be settings. That's where you adjust all the settings for the course. People, this is where you either assign people or where it shows you people who have been assigned. So we'll talk about reporting before we're done, but some of the basic reporting info is available right inside the course. I look at people and I see, okay, I assigned this person, she hasn't completed it yet. She has 28 days left because I did put a due date on it. The edit result, if you have someone who has some kind of a technical issue, they lose their internet connection in the middle of taking a course, something like that, and they say, okay, I finished it, I took the test, but then it doesn't have me down as completing it, which usually, again, the reason for that is if they lose their internet connection in the middle, you can actually edit that as an admin. So if you know for a fact that they completed it and you don't have a way to, you don't want it to keep showing up on the reports as not complete, you can make that change there. Same thing with teams. You can see the teams that are assigned to a course. And then if I go all the way back to content, which is where we started, I can take a look and see now I don't have processing over here, which just means that this module has been uploaded to this course. So we had a lot of questions in the first training about, can I upload multiple modules into the same course? And the answer is yes, but that's not what we recommend. So I will show you guys in a minute how to do what's called a learning path. And if you want just everyone to be taking all 3 courses, that's the best way to do it. Putting multiple modules into one course, it's part of the way Litmos is designed, but it doesn't work that well for Media Pro courses. It can make the reporting really confusing. So I do want to point out on the far right, you have a couple options for this course or for this module. The big one here, if you click the little pencil to edit, you can make some changes there. Mostly, you don't usually have to go in here. One of the things you can do from here is turn on review mode, which just means that once they've completed the course, they can go back in to look at the content if they want to. So there's some changes you can make in there. I'm going to go back from here, back up to courses at the very top. So this is all of my courses. Then I'm also going to look at learning paths. So this is the one that I created yesterday. I'm going to just click on that one. So when you, actually I'm going to do a new one. When you do create a new learning path, I'm going to use my very creative naming convention again, learning path 2. Same thing as a course. You can do a description if you want. You can allow people to take the courses in any order. So if you don't care if they take phishing first or last, you can check that box. Otherwise, it is going to be a path. So it's a set order they're expected to take the courses in. So what you do when you're creating a learning path is once you've saved it, then you can add courses to it. So now if I click add courses, and you're only going to see the courses that are on your list, by the way. So a lot of the searching I'm doing is just because of the size of the data in the sandbox. And you won't necessarily have to worry about that. You're only going to have the 3 courses uploaded. I'm going to check both of those boxes and click add. And it's going to add both of those courses to this learning path. So the nice thing about setting up a learning path is you don't specifically have to go in and assign everyone to each of the 3 courses. You can just say, okay, everyone needs to take this path, which has these 3 courses. Same as with a course, you can go into people and assign them. You can go into teams and assign them. I am going to assign this to hosting so that we can see it and not send an email at this point. So one of the things I want to make sure to show you guys is what your actual end users are going to see. So far this has all been admin functions. One of the things you can do as an admin is up in the upper right. You can click this little drop-down arrow and switch to learner view. So that's kind of important to see what your actual learners are going to see. They're not going to see a fraction, they have a fraction of what you have as an admin. They are only going to see the courses that have been assigned to them or the learning paths that have been assigned to them. So this is what they will see when they log in. And then this is where, let's say I click on the learning path we just created. They'll go in here. When they click start this learning path, it's going to open up that course. And then they'll go through and complete the course. Once they've completed it, it's going to have them take the next course. So it just kind of takes them through that whole path. If they need to get out of it in the middle, they can click exit. It doesn't necessarily pick up where they left off, is probably the best way to put it. So it's kind of important for them to be aware that if they close out of it in the middle, they may have to go back in and find where they were. We do recommend, if your users are going to leave, say they have to step away from the training, it's better to exit out and then come back into it. And the main reason for that is if they lose their connection, if something times out, their computer goes to sleep, they can open this back up and complete the course, and they may have lost their connection to the LMS, which means it won't necessarily record the course completion. So it's pretty common for people, everybody's busy, and they'll be halfway through the course and get an email that they need to answer, and then they'll actually just leave the course open and go do something else for an hour and then come back to it, and sometimes it'll time out. And most LMS systems, this is not just the Litmos thing, most of them don't give you an error message when that has happened, so you don't necessarily know that it's happened at the time, except that the system hasn't recorded you completing that training. So definitely exit out and go back into it if you need to. and I just clicked exit in the upper right. And then they can come back in and complete the course. So because I didn't check the box that says you can do them in any order, you'll notice that I can't actually go into this next course until I finish the first one. That's because of how the learning path is set up. So other than that, let me go back to home really quick here. One of the things to keep in mind, actually I'm going to go in the upper right and switch to admin view. So that's how you get back to the admin. We did go ahead and brand these courses just based on, most of them we just went to the individual website and grabbed a logo from there. The colors were set up based on the logos. So if you go into your LMS and you're thinking, okay, why did they pick the yellow out of the logo? This is all crazy looking. If you don't like the color that was chosen, or if you have a different logo that you want to have used, you're not going to have access directly to change that, but it's something that we can change for you. So keep in mind that Google Doc that Jason has set up for support type things for either the phishing or the LMS systems is all through that same Google Doc. And just let us know. You go in there and say, okay, I need the logo to be changed. Probably what we'll do is send you an email directly so you can give us that information so we can change some of the basic colors and then also the logo up in the corner. So when you log in, it should have your logo at least and have the colors based on that. So let me go back to, so we've done teams, people, courses. The other big thing we need to look at is reports. And reports are pretty simple. This is where if you have set someone up as a team administrator, they can go into reports. They will only see people who are in the team they are the administrator for when they're doing reports. You as an account admin will see everyone in here if you want to run reports. On the right-hand side, let's see here. Someone must have reset this because it looks kind of funny with the, oh, it's just the last 30 days. So on the right-hand side, you've got your quick reports. You could do reports based on the learning path, based on individual courses. That gives you some basic information. Let me pick one that maybe people have actually been in. And you can see the assigned date, the due date, whether those people are active or inactive, and whether it's overdue or complete. The better report for completion information is usually the module report. And the reason for that one is it just gives you more details. So let me click on this one to see. It's hard to do in the sandbox because a lot of these don't have that much information. But the modules report gives you how many times they've tried, what was their score on the assessment, how long did it take them, did they complete it, when's the last time they attempted it. So it gives you a lot more kind of detailed information from there. Also for any of these reports, you can download them or schedule them. So let's say I'm going to go into Teams and I'm going to do my search again and pull up one of our team that we set up. I'm going to do the one from yesterday because it has more users in it. And, oh, there we go. So up in the upper right, I have this green button for download or schedule this report. I usually prefer to schedule it because it sends it to me in an email. So if I get interrupted in the middle, I'm not waiting for this to pop up as being done. It's just going to email it to me. And also because I can say, okay, send it to me, and then also send it to someone else. I'm just separating that with a semicolon there. So this does not have to be a person who is set up in the LMS as a user. If you have some kind of administrator who's not going to be in there, but needs to see those reports, you can add them to this list. You can do this for, okay, I just want this report right now, or you can set it up to run on a couple different frequencies. I can say, all right, every Monday, send me this report. You can choose formats. I prefer CSV because you can modify it, but you can do PDF if you want to. And then you can change the title there. So if I just do, I'm going to retitle it, and then I'm going to click, actually, first I'm going to take hosting out because it'll really go there. We'll just send it to me at this point and hit run. And then it basically just says, okay, it's ready to go. It'll happen in a couple of moments. It does take a few minutes for the reports to go through, especially if you're running one with a lot of information in it, but then that should pop up in your email. And you don't have to sit here and wait for it to happen, so you can go do other things while you're waiting for that to process. If I go back to reports in the meantime. The other items over here, there's this legacy creator report and then the reporting engine. Basically, the reporting engine is the newer version of the creator report. So some of the users really like this one, so Litmos has left it in there. I recommend starting with the reporting engine. This lets you build a report. So if none of those quick reports really have what you're looking for, you can kind of build your own. So you can say, I want a report about courses, and then you can tell it what fields you want. So it's pretty customizable, which is nice. You can kind of decide, different things that you want to have listed in here. You can also go back and forth, which is nice. So a lot of times what happens to me in here is I realize, oh no, what I want is something more specific. So you might have to change what you're reporting on and then say, okay, this is the information I want. So that lets you do basically your own custom reports. I'm going to back up to reports here. Other than that, so modules has the most detailed information. Teams lets you report by team, so you can do team comparisons. Which of my teams are doing better at getting people to take the training, that sort of thing. Other than that, though, let me know does anyone have any questions about the reports? You guys have been super quiet so far, which I'm hoping is a good sign. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions, or again, you can unmute to ask questions. The reports are pretty self-explanatory. The other thing I do want to quickly show you is now that it's set up, those of you who also have the phishing, and give me just a second to pull this up on my other screen here. But those of you who also have the phishing can actually set it up so that I'm trying to type in a password and talk at the same time, so that your phishing campaign automatically assigns training. So I'm going to bring that back over here. So your phishing accounts have been linked to the LMS. This is assuming that you have both. This only works with the Media Pro, Litmos LMS, and the phishing simulator. If you're not using the phishing tool, obviously this won't apply. If you're using another LMS, you're going to need to run reports in the phishing tool to see who fell for the phishing attempt and then assign the training based on that. There's not going to be that automatic integration. But from the phishing tool, if you go into campaigns when you're setting up your campaign, I'm just going to do new campaign here. You should now see, so if you were in here creating campaigns before, if your LMS wasn't set up yet, you wouldn't have seen this before, but now you should see a box that says training, and you have this checkbox, assign training in LMS. And then when you click on this dropdown, you're just going to see the courses in your LMS. So for you guys, if you've uploaded all three, at the most you should see those 3 courses. And you should just be choosing phishing, right? So there isn't a reason at this point to be assigning them security awareness training because of the phishing campaign. Usually you would assign them that phishing course. So what this does, and I would go kind of do some testing so you get a look at what it looks like. It basically adds 2 things. It adds a button to the landing page. So when they get the landing page that says, okay, you fell for a phishing attempt, it's then going to have a button on it that says launch training, and that will take them directly to the LMS. If they've never been in it before, they'll have to set up their password at that point. If they have, it'll just take them directly in. But it also sends them an email afterwards. So it sends them an email letting them know that so they'll get the email out of the LMS that they've been assigned training. So if they see the landing page and instead of hitting launch training, they just close it, usually within a few minutes, they'll get an email from the LMS saying, hey, you've been assigned training. It's basically the same email that comes out if you manually assign training, but you have this ability so that you don't have to go run a report, see who fell for the phishing attempt, and then assign them the training. You can just have the system do it for you. So that's one of the nice things if you're using the Media Pro LMS and also the phishing simulator. So let me know if anyone has questions on that. Going back to the support Google document, if you should have both and you can get logged into both and you don't see this in here, definitely put that in that. We did integrate them all, but we had a lot of them to set up. So if one of them got missed, let us know in that Google document, and we'll make sure to double check that and get that set up. So other than that, I feel like yesterday this took longer because there were a lot more questions. So we looked at reports, we looked at setting up teams and getting the code for that, doing the bulk import to add your users, Just as a heads up, you can also go in and make users inactive. You don't have a way to delete them in the system, but if you go into, let's see if I can find someone who's actually active. Again, the hazards of using a sandbox environment. If you go into a user and then on the right-hand side, if you click on options and edit that person, you can go down and I forget exactly where this is. Oh, should be able to make them inactive. And you actually won't see the delete. That's, again, to do with it being a sandbox environment. I'm going to have to go back and look. I think they have actually modified this, but you can make users inactive, and you can also use the import for it. So usually the way I do it is the bulk import. You can add a column to make people inactive. So other than that, does anyone have any questions about anything in the LMS? Keep in mind, we've got the Google document again for asking questions. It's a pretty simple process. You're going to upload those SCORM 1.2 files into those courses. Depending on how detailed you want to get with it, you can set up a learning path if you want to. If you run into any questions on any of that, we have those resources kind of set aside. And I will make sure after this call to get Jason the certificate template in case you guys want to use that. And then other than that, so I'll go ahead and leave this open for another minute or so in case any questions come up. Again, you can unmute and ask a question, or you can ask a question in the chat. But otherwise, that's what we had to go over. So I hope everyone has a good day.